Hi guys, and welcome back to the Quick Slant on Green Bay Packer Nation and greenbaypackernation.com. Today we're going to try and find some encouragement with each other in the positives going forward in light of all the atrociousness that happened against the Lions, so stick around. Today we're going to talk about Mason Crosby, of course. We're going to talk about the turnovers. We'll talk about the productivity of both the offense and the defense. But as always, before we get started, I do want to let you know, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you hit the subscribe button and tap that bell notification so you get notified when we post a new video. And if you'd be willing to share this video with someone you know who loves the Packers and would be interested, we'd love for you to do that as well. So let's start with Mason Crosby. There are some headlines I'm reading around that are suggesting that the Packers might be ready to cut ties with Mason Crosby. You know, honestly, at some point, Mason's going to get old enough and unproductive enough that we're going to have to do that. That is not this season. He's doing fine. I've not been a kicker in football, but I have been a basketball player, and anybody who's played basketball knows that sometimes you just go through streaks on your free throws where you just can't buy one to save your life. Sometimes those streaks are longer than other times, and this was just one of those bizarre games where just nothing went right. Something got in Mason's head. I do like the fact that Mike McCarthy let him kick that last field goal. Even though I kind of expected McCarthy to just go for the touchdown, I'm glad that he let Mason kick that last field goal, get it back in his head that he has not lost it, get back in the rhythm of things. He's going to be fine. So, I mean, you can let me know if you think differently, but I just don't see any other way than Mason Crosby is going to be just fine for the rest of the season. So I'm going to put that one on the back burner. The turnovers, crazy freak turnovers. For starters, the first one, I think most of us would agree that it wasn't even a turnover. I thought it was a turnover initially when the call was made, but upon review, it really does look like the ball deflected off the Detroit kick team's hands, and it should not have been a fumble at all. That being said, regardless of the situation, as a kick return team, you need to be aware when the punt returner is waving everybody off, and you need to get yourself out of the line of fire. So that was just a freak accident. The second fumble, where Aaron was just didn't feel the pressure from behind. Usually that's something that Aaron's been good at. He tends to have this internal clock where he hears those footsteps behind him pretty well. In this case, he just didn't, and you know, it came from his blind side. Not a lot he could have done to avoid that since he didn't sniff it out. So those were freak accidents. It amounted to enough points for Detroit that were those points not on the board, the Packers would have won the game. Now, if we look at Mason Crosby's kicks, the number of kicks he missed, that would have been enough points again to put the Packers on the win side of that game. So it was just a perfect storm of horrible events. Now, as far as the offense and defense productivity, in my estimation, the defense did, I think, an outstanding job against a Matt Stafford-led offense that can be very potent. Especially Galladay has shown himself to be a very good and productive asset to the Lions team. So I thought that we did a pretty good job corralling the run game, which is something that the Lions have been focusing on getting started this season. I think we did a pretty good job of keeping under wraps some of these electric receivers that that the Lions have, I also think, even though we let Stafford sit in the pocket too long from time to time, I think we did a good job of getting him to move off point. And Stafford's not the kind of quarterback that you need to get on the run, really. You just need to move him off point, and he starts to get inaccurate. So I thought we did a really good job of that, amounting to only allowing, 246 yards, I want to say. 246 yards of total offense for the Lions, and we'll get into stats more on Wednesday and by the numbers. So if you want to jump in, we'll get the exact number on by the numbers this Wednesday. But I thought the defense did quite a good job. The offense, I think, did a fairly good job as well. There were some big gaffes, especially in my mind, from Aaron Rodgers, where he just was not seeing receivers open that had actually separation. I got tired of hearing, was it Chris Spielman, the analyst for the Crew, talking about how the Packers receivers were not getting separation. There was plenty of separation. I mean, it wasn't every receiver every play, but especially Davante Adams, I can't imagine, if I go back over the film, I won't see that Davante had separation on every single play. He just is that much better than the Lions' defensive backfield. We did miss Allison in this game. We did miss Cobb, but I think the rookie receivers did a fairly good job. Of course, there was the rookie mistake of not getting 2 feet in bounds, and he adjusted to that later in the game, and we saw that. And that's, I mean, as long as you don't continually keep making the mistakes, you'll get more and more chances. If you continually make the mistakes, that's when you're going to ride the pine. But I think the offense did, by and large, did a fairly good job, to the tune of, again, that was north of 500 yards in the game, which should have been plenty to win this game. So let's talk a little bit about some of the positives we can take away from this game, because I think there are positives. I think there are things we can take away from this game that will keep us in a positive mind frame going forward. Number one, we're still in the first quarter of the season, so there's still plenty of time to make up ground on the Bears leading this division. We saw that last season with Hundley at the helm. As many times as we dropped games during that season, we still, at the end of the season, had a chance to keep our playoff hopes alive and slip into the playoffs and make a run for the Super Bowl. It was still a possibility. And I think all is not lost, simply because this is the first quarter of the season. So there's that. Number two thing that I personally take away from this is I like to see I like the fact that we got to see the rookies get a lot of playing time in action against some pretty, well, I wouldn't call them pretty good defensive backs, but definitely better defensive backs than they saw in the preseason. So I'm glad that Valdez-Scantling and Economist St. Brown got a chance to get a lot of great reps with Aaron Rodgers against fairly good NFL defenders. That is just going to, I think that's just going to translate forward as we go through the rest of the season into the Packers' pass game getting even stronger and stronger and stronger. There was some talk about the fact that the run game just was almost non-existent. I think there was a reason for that. Well, I think most of us would think there's a reason for that. When you get behind, you have to start playing catch-up. You really need to chew up larger pieces of real estate, and so you really need to rely more heavily on the pass game. So it doesn't surprise me that the Packers backed off the run game, even though we were doing quite well. I'll have to let you know on Wednesday by the numbers what the exact averages were. But at one point I saw Jones was averaging over 5.4 yards a carry or something of that nature. He ended up not even being our number one rusher in terms of carries. So that just kind of shows you how the progress of the first quarter of the game just push us out of our game plan and into a pass first or a pass heavy game plan. So, you know, there's still plenty of time to catch up. The Vikings won, which bothers me, but we've got plenty of time to turn this thing around. We're going to get Cobb and Geronimo Allison back, and if we can get Jimmy Graham in the mix better than we've been getting him in the mix, then it's going to be good. So let me know what you think about the good points of the game. Let's not, I mean, the loss is kind of behind us. Let's talk about what you think is positive going forward from this game. And until next time, go Pack.